There are cars where I'm reading the spec sheets before testing them and already sort of know what kind of review it's going to be. But there's also cars that sort of surprise me along the way, and this might be one of them. My name is Peter, welcome to a new auto review video, and this is the Lexus LBX 35th edition. Now that is special for the Netherlands because Lexus is active in this country for 35 years and therefore a 35th edition. But in the rest of Europe this is called the Vibrant edition, which actually is written on the side here as well. So 35th edition exclusive for the Netherlands, Vibrant edition for everybody else. And this is an interesting car potentially because Lexus, obviously the luxury brother of Toyota, makes really nice cars. And this segment, the B segment, is usually a car segment where you want a little bit of budget but still a lot of value. And at first glance this might not really fit that bill. So in this video we're going to see what's different about this edition and if it is all worth the extra money, of course, that you have to pay for this edition, if it's indeed such a party piece as Lexus wants it to be. Now most of the goodies are on the inside, but here on the outside there's a few visual cues as well. First of all, this matte sort of chromish strip here on the front for the look. We got some fake vents here on the side. It's not really nice, I think, but hey, it's there. You also get some 18-inch matte black wheels, which I think look really nice, especially in combination with the black mirrors and this sort of two-tone red setup. Now there's 3 colors available and this red is almost 2,000 euros in optional extra pricing for this color. But I think this is the one to go for because it looks really, really nice. Now this is a B segment car, so it is rather small, especially in the rear seats, as we'll see in a bit. But what is not small is the boot. As we open that while we're here. Electric, so that is a nice luxury feel. And you get 400 liters of boot space. So that is excellent and also super usable. This is not a car you're going to take on ski holiday or summer break or whatever, even though it's technically all possible. But 400 liters is easily big enough for 4 or 5 sports bags, some tennis gear, and all that goodness. And that's really what this car is more for, sort of in and around cities, in between cities maybe even. And for that it is more than workable because you can use this very well in your day-to-day life. What I also quite like is the light signature here in the back with that sort of swoop over the Lexus branding and then around the lights. I think that's really stylishly done. And also here, by the way, is, I hope you can read it, it says a Vibrant edition, which is the name or the sort of type for this car everywhere outside the Netherlands, but we call it 35th edition. All around, I think this is a good looking car from the outside. If you're shopping in this kind of size and budget that we'll get to in a minute is not much of an issue, then this is certainly something to consider purely based on its looks. Now once you get into this car, you start to see where your money went, because this is a very, very nice place to be. For me, the first impression of a car always starts with the way I'm sitting and what I'm looking at. Now the seats are excellent. You can see this nice two-tone leather everywhere throughout the cockpit, so that is great to begin with. But they're also really comfortable. I often complain that I don't fit in seats properly, and that's really true. But these are excellent. They do offer some support here on the bottom part of the back, but here on the top they flare out nicely, and that makes me able to fit in there very nicely. Also for longer journeys it is very comfortable in here. The second thing for me, like I said, is the view out, not only through the window, but what I'm looking at. And that is also really, really nice. Everything is buttons, no touchy swipey nonsense in this car. The displays are clear. The center screen is very nice to operate with still some physical controls around it. And all around it's a pleasant place to be. Everything you touch, everything you look at is very pleasant. And I think that is a theme all around for this car. It's all very nice. It's just nice. The way you sit, the way this car drives, the power delivery, it's all very, very nice. And it's a good thing. I think that's something Lexus set out to achieve with this car, and they've really done it. So that is a job well done there. I mentioned that everything is buttons, so that goes from the window control to the mirror control to the steering wheel to the stalks behind the steering wheel. Everything is manually operated, which is great, and everything does what you think it does. It's very intuitive, and it's a very nice way of interacting with your car. It's very tactile, and it also just makes it easier to press things, easier to find things, and you don't have any phantom touches, like when you're swiping over the steering wheel by accident and you touch 3 buttons and your menu's changed. That is annoying. That doesn't happen in this kind of setup. So that's great. The driver's display is nice and clear. And Lexus has moved all the fiddly bits that a lot of Toyotas have still, for example, to turn off the lane departure or the traffic sign recognition that required a lot of button pushing in a lot of Toyotas, but that has now all moved to the center screen. So that is fantastic. Two things I want to notice before we start driving is the complete lack of piano black in this car. No piano black whatsoever. All the surfaces that are usually that shiny, horrible material are now sort of a matte brushed kind of gray, which is still plastic, obviously, but it is very, very nice. It looks much better, looks classy, especially with this two-tone interior, and it just makes you feel more upmarket right away. And it's just practically also better because it doesn't scratch, it doesn't get smudgy, and it doesn't shine in your eye when it's a sunny day out. So that is great. What's not so great are the flippers behind the steering wheel. They look nice and they are very well sculpted even, but they don't add anything in any way, shape or form to the driving experience, because up front we have a 130 horsepower hybrid connected to a CVT gearbox. So, you know, it does its thing and there's absolutely no reason for you to shift at any point in time. So I'm not really sure why this is here. It doesn't really contribute to the driving at all. And I also don't think it connects to the driving style of this car in general, but we'll get to that in a second as we start moving. All around, I'm pretty happy with this interior. It's a good place to spend a longer time as well. I've done a few longer journeys, and it is, every time I've gotten out of this car, I'll be like, okay, all is well. And every time I've gotten back in, I'm like, ah, nice. Everything from the seat heating to the steering wheel heating to the way you operate everything, and it all interacts together. Very nice, very well done, Lexus. Now the only thing missing maybe is a panoramic roof because it is already a relatively dark interior. But I have to say it doesn't get very dark in here because there's enough light coming from the front and the side windows. In the rear though, it's a different story because the windows are already tinted and not super big, and there's not a lot of space back there, and it's a dark interior, so back there it does get a bit cramped and claustrophobic, but there's not that much space there anyway. So as far as I'm concerned, that is not that much of an issue, but a panoramic roof would not be a bad addition to this car. Obviously, we got to talk about the price of all this goodness. This LBX starts at 38,000 euros here in the Netherlands. You can then move on to the business line for 39,695, the elegant line for just over 42,000, the emotion line for 43,000, the Relax line for 44,000. This 35th edition is 44,395, and above this there is the Cool edition for 44,645. So it's quite the spread of LBX pricing here in the Netherlands. You join me on the highway because of course we have to do a little bit of driving in this LBX 35th edition. It is a very nice place to be in here. I mentioned in the interior tour that it's all very nice, and that is something that also goes for the driving experience. Currently we're doing about 100 kilometers an hour and the battery is charging a little bit. The wheels are turning obviously, and the hybrid system is doing everything for me. And that is, I think, the strength of this type of hybrid system, because the system is doing it all for you, and the benefit is that you don't have to think about it, but also that you get great fuel economy. If I look at the trip computer, I'm doing 5.8 liters per 100 kilometers in the week that I've had this car. And you know, testing a car and filming a car especially is not very good for your fuel consumption. If you take this car on normal daily driving cycles and you're not even particularly careful, you can easily go under 5 liters per 100. So that is excellent. That's not too long ago, those were like diesel only values. So that is great. And that's exactly what you want. You want a carefree car where you don't have to worry about any of those problems that come with electrification. And I think this is a very good implementation. If you come from an ICE car into this, you don't even have to change the way you drive. The engine itself is very supple. It's very important to note that if you pay close attention, obviously you can tell when the engine switches on, and you can look at your dash as well to see when the engine is turned off, when it's making RPMs. But that will take about 3 minutes and then you'll forget about it and never think about it again, because it's so smooth, that transition from electric when you leave a traffic light, for example, or when you're parking, to the engine cutting in and giving you a bit more power. It's super smooth. So Lexus and Toyota have done such a good job in making that transition smooth, pleasant to work with, and also, again, something you never really have to think about anymore because it is basically seamless. So that is excellent, and that is exactly what you want, I think, and it fits this sort of relaxed driving experience of this car. The engine itself, though, is not powerful. It's 130 and a bit horsepower, so by no means this is a fast car. It is for relaxed traveling and good fuel economy, but you're not going to win any traffic light sprints, nor is this a car for overtaking or going for gaps and those kind of things. That's just not happening with this little power. But is that an issue? Not really. I always say that more power is more pleasant for driving, which is true. But if you just want a car to get you from A to B in comfort, style, and a pleasant way of traveling, then this is certainly up there. So I mentioned the leg room in the rear, or lack thereof rather. This is the amount of space you get when you're sitting behind me, and I'm 1.83 m and a bit over 90 kilos. So let's say it is not very generous, and that is putting it mildly. I'll spare you watching me get into a yoga position trying to sit behind myself. It's just not realistic for adults. Obviously, in extreme scenarios, I can slide a bit forward and it's all theoretically possible for a shorter drive. But in reality, no, this is certainly not for adults. My boys are 8 and 11, and even they are complaining already for the lack of space. Again, you can push the furniture around a little bit and make it workable, but certainly no longer than small city drives going to sports or so on. Maxi Cozy will fit, obviously. Very little kids will fit, even though car seats are very big. But if everybody compromises a bit, it is all technically possible. But category as a whole, these kind of cars, you're not buying them for the rear legroom. All around, the driving experience is very nice. It's very relaxed in here. It's very quiet in here. You know, motorway speeds in the Netherlands are 100 kilometers an hour at the best of times. And it's just a pleasant place for commuting and traveling. And I think that's exactly what this car is about. It's a nice place to be. It's good materials. It's comfortable. It has all the toys and tech you can ever want. The screen is easy to operate without being flashy. The displays are clear. The buttons are a joy to use. So overall, it's all very nice. And I think that all-round package is actually quite a good deal. It is a good deal until you start looking at the price. 43,000 euros is a lot of money for a car this size. There's certainly bigger cars you can get for that money with more power. But I think if you're looking for a premium car in this segment, we recently drove a bunch of smaller Volvos, and those are a little bit the same kind of story. It's expensive if you look at it on paper, but yeah, you get a lot of toys, you get a lot of tech, you get a lot of premium quality, and of course you get the badge, in this case Lexus, which is a premium badge, and you know, that just costs money. And I think the overall experience wouldn't say justifies the price tag, because you know, you can always argue that 43,000 euros is way too much money for a car this size, and there's, you know, an argument to be made there. But you know, for what it is, I think if you can afford it and you like Lexus and you like a carefree driving experience in this sort of package, I think this LBX 35th year edition is quite a nice overall job done by Lexus in providing you with, yeah, like I said, luxury, comfort, style, good looking car, I think, especially in this red. And in this 35th edition with all the toys and tech and premium materials that you can ever want. I think it's nice. As long as you don't have to transport anybody in the rear, this is a very good car. Let me know in the comments below if you would go for this 35th edition, or if you would rather save a whole bunch of money actually and just go for a standard version, or if you would buy something else completely. Let me know. I'm keen to read those kind of things. That's all I got for you in this video though. Thanks for watching. Give it a thumbs up if you like it, and hopefully you will subscribe to the channel as well, because there is a whole lot of videos coming to you this year. And if you don't want to miss any of those, definitely subscribe. For now, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Cheers!